Okay. Today we are standing here at the Republican plot. It's in St Finbarr's Cemetery in Cork, and here we have some of our great patriots buried. One in particular stands out, Terence MacSweeney. Terence MacSweeney, his father fought for in the Papal Wars against Garibaldi, and MacSweeney himself became a great patriot. His mother was English, Mary Wilkinson, and she was a devout Catholic, but also very, very strong with Catholic nationalism. MacSweeney died after 74 days of hunger strike in Brixton prison. He died. He received a Blessed Sacrament from a priest, confession, Holy Communion, and he died after 74 days. And he had a funeral in Cork City in Ireland, and he was buried here, right here now in this spot here, where we have his grave. And there is a plaque to him. He was a poet. He was an author, and above all, he was a Catholic, as most Irish patriots are. Some people here may not know very little about Irish history, so I'll give them a brief outline of this. Irish history without its Catholicism was simply not tenable. From the beginning, from the time of St Patrick, the Irish took to their faith, and they held it through thick and thin, through the Vikings raiding Ireland and eventually occupying large parts of it, and through the English occupation of Ireland under Pope Adrian, who apparently gave them permission to come into Ireland, which of course was forbidden by the church itself. Now there is a dispute about this, whether or not Adrian gave this permission, but he never denied or he never condemned the invasion. We had unfortunately many wars were fought in Ireland against England, and it was constant repression, and the people were disenfranchised. They lost their lands, were stolen from them, and settlers came in and took over the lands, and so forth. So we had what, in English diplomats, he may have been an ambassador, described as the saddest history of all, which I would agree with. Now, Ireland fought back on many occasions, and to give you some idea of the kind of soldiers the Irish were, we had one General Owen O'Neill, and he fought with the British, of the French and the Spanish mainly, against the British whenever he could. But he decided eventually that he needed to come back to Ireland after the flight of the Earls. The flight of the Earls were when the last of the Irish chieftains had to leave Ireland and go to Europe. They settled in Europe, and they died there, hoping to come back here someday to fight again. Now O'Neill was very successful on the continent as an officer in the Spanish army especially, and he persuaded the Spaniards that he should come to Ireland and begin an insurrection there. So he came with 200 officers, and over the next few years he found the Irish were not military wise, so he put an army together of about 6,000 men, trained them. It is said in the same way as the American army was trained under Washington. They started out as not knowing anything about military matters, and they became very, very proficient. O'Neill fought one battle, a place called Monroe was sent to Ireland before Cromwell. Cromwell was landing in Ireland, and O'Neill fought him at a place called Benburb. And it will tell you the experience of O'Neill and his competence as a general. The figures for casualties were over 3,000 of the English were killed, and 70 Irish died with 200 casualties. So this, by the way, the war cry of O'Neill was Sancta Maria and in the name of the Holy Trinity. So all through, there's a thread running through, right through Irish history, which is always Catholic. It's without its Catholicism, it is really indistinguishable. This today, unfortunately, has changed, and Ireland now, from top of its tree to its branches down into its roots, has taken literally gone against its past. Not the people, but the government, politicians, the judges, all those of a professional nature who swore to uphold the Constitution of Ireland have turned against it, and they are literally in a state of treason. The state of treason extends right, unfortunately, into many areas of even the local government, and into the schools where the children are being taught a revisionist history. One of our great heroes, Patrick Pearse, in the 1916 Rising, which you probably heard about, he said, he called the educational system, he said it was a murder machine, which it is. It murders the minds of the people, the children, and it turns them into little anglicised second-class citizens, really, in their own country. So the main thing to do here is to, if I can read the Constitution for you. I have it here in my bag, and it will give us some idea of what we're talking about. The Constitution really is only 2 pages. It's in Irish and it's in English. The Irish version is much more precise than the English. So if I read a preamble, you will understand here that the law of Ireland is the natural law. The definition of the natural law is, by Aquinas, the rational creature's participation in the natural law of God, which is the eternal law of God. And the eternal law itself comes from the divine law. So Ireland is, from root to branch, from top to bottom, it is Catholic. This law was passed, this Constitution, 1937 Constitution was passed in 1937, and it was passed by a majority of 685,000 people to approximately 520,000. Now, Ireland was very Catholic at the time, at least devotionally. It was so repressed that they couldn't afford to buy books, prayer books, missals, anything like this. The English kept a tight hold on Ireland, and the people were in dire poverty, lived in terrible conditions, and even though the penal laws had been finished, they still lived under such rules, and therefore when they voted as Catholics. So the natural law has to be the law of the Catholic Church. The advisors to De Valera at the time were Father McQuaid and Father Cahill, a Jesuit. Also in the background would have been Professor Dennis Fahy, who would have advised them. So it was a Catholic understanding always, even the Trinity. Now today we have the fact that the Constitution itself, I will read out part of it here. It is the preamble of the Constitution is the Constitution. The rest are articles which only are the positive law of the judges to try and explain the day-to-day runnings of the country under legal terms. If I read the preamble of the Constitution, you will understand perfectly what I'm talking about. It says here, and they swear to this, all politicians and judges must swear to uphold this. In the name of the Most Holy Trinity, from whom is all authority, and to whom, as our final end, all actions of both men and states must be referred. We, the people of Eire, humbly acknowledging all our obligations to our divine Lord Jesus Christ, who sustained our fathers through centuries of trial, gratefully remembering their heroic and unremitting struggle to regain the rightful independence of our nation, and seeking to promote the common good with due observance of prudence, justice and charity, so that the dignity and freedom of the individual may be assured, true social order attained, the unity of our country restored, and concord established with other nations. And down in the bottom line then we do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution. This refers to the people of the country. The judges, the judiciary, the politicians, as regards to Dáil Éireann, the executive, no one who swears no to this Constitution is in the Constitution. They are under it and they are controlled by it. the fact that they don't fulfill their sworn oaths today is really an act of treason. They've declared war on the people, this I believe, and this war has continued since 1920. In 1920, before the English came here, before the British left, they passed what is called the 1920 Government of Ireland Act. And in that act, you have Article 65. And in Article 65, if I read it out to you again, you will understand it perfectly. Article 65 states, special provision as to Freemasons. 1. It is hereby declared that existing enactments relative to the unlawful oaths or unlawful assemblies in Ireland not to apply to the meetings or proceedings of the Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of Ireland or to any lodge or society recognised by that Grand Lodge. That means that all laws in Ireland now brought into force against all secret societies not accepting the Grand Lodge and Freemasons and Accepted Masons of Ireland and any lodge or society recognised by it. So they were above the law from the beginning. Now, number 2, neither the Parliament of Southern Ireland nor the Parliament of Northern Ireland shall have power to abrogate or affect prejudicially any privilege or exemption of the Grand of Freemasons of Ireland or any lodge or society recognised by that Grand Lodge which is enjoyed either by law or custom at the time of the passing of this Act, and any law made in contravention of this provision shall, so far as it is in contravention of this provision, be void. That means that if the Masonic lodges were placed above the law. Now the English were past masters, and maybe not today, but they were past masters of divide and conquer. And what they did here was that they inserted, even before the first Dáil, which was in 1922, they inserted into their constitution the Masonic lodges' rights to literally control this country, because the maxim, I believe, is that what's above the law controls what's under it, and also controls what's under that law. Now, in 1937, we then had our referendum bringing the Irish Constitution, 1937 Constitution, as the Constitution of Ireland, and therefore all other constitutions before that and enactments would have been void. But apparently, as far as we can discover, the Article 65 was never abrogated or abrogated or anything, so it may still be in power today. If it isn't, the power of the Masonic lodges anyway has overtaken that of the Catholic Church, and we are now ruled by Freemasons. They do it very covertly, as they do in England. The English people probably don't even realise the extent of the power of the Masonic lodges in their country. So we do not blame the ordinary English man or woman, because they too were victims of this heinous and secret, literally anti-God society.